Today's episode of the Just Keep Swimming podcast is brought to you by Audible. Audible is an online audiobook and podcast service offering over 10,000 books and the ability to listen to your favorite podcasts, including the Just Keep Swimming podcast. I personally use Audible all the time and suggest you take a listen to Intentional Living by John C. Maxwell. In this book, Mr. Maxwell shares his story on how he was able to live a noble and purposeful life and gives you tips and tricks so you can do the same. So please start your 30-day free trial now at www.audibletrial.com/JKS podcast, all lowercase. Again, that is www.audibletrial.com/JKS podcast. And if you have any more questions or concerns for the Just Keep Swimming podcast, you're always welcome to reach out to us on Facebook or at Instagram at Just Keep Swimming _podcast, or you can email us at jkspodcast702@gmail.com. And with that out the way, let's dive into it.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the Just Keep Swimming podcast. Here's your co-host, your boy, you already know, Mr. 13 We're doing something a little bit different today because our main host, Adrian Jackson, he, took a vacation and with his girlfriend, and they went on a cruise out of the country. So, he is back at the time of this recording, but I just wanted to give him a little bit of break since, he had that full vacation. I want him to get a little bit of rest. And I just wanted to share a quick message because, as I've mentioned before in some previous episodes, I have gone back to school, and now I'm currently on my third class. I get to, essentially do one class every 5 weeks, and that definitely helps with, having a full-time job, doing the podcast, going to church, all the things that I have going on in my life, and that helps me get through. But, as these classes have kind of went on, they actually, pose some interesting topics that, for once in my life, I'm actually interested in. And for this class, this is, humanities, whatever number, and we're talking about critical thinking. I just kind of want to give some ideas and thoughts and talk about critical thinking for a bit today. What is critical thinking? You've probably heard this word as you went through your primary school, probably in English or something, where you have to kind of analyze something and use your critical thinking skills to come up with a response. But what is actual critical thinking? I feel like it's a lot easier than, people realize. I wouldn't say easier, but, people realize it without them necessarily knowing. One example that they gave in one of the first assignments in class, I had to do a interactive video, and what they started it off was, you go to the supermarket and you're trying to pick up, a gallon of milk. So you go to the aisle, and you notice that there's so many different types of milk. You got regular milk, you got 1% whole milk, you got chocolate milk, strawberry milk, you got almond milk, that's getting popular, almond milk and oat milk. But you're trying to decide which one do I pick? Okay, well, you do have a family at home. You got to realize, okay, what do they like? Oh, I know Johnny doesn't like chocolate. So, that's probably out of the question. But we are trying to be healthier recently, so I'm going to probably go with the almond milk, and that's just me personally. I really like almond milk over every other milk. But essentially right there, that's the whole process of thoughts right there was critical thinking. You were displayed an options, given a situation, and you had to think through which one you were going to choose. That's essentially the basis of critical thinking. Just accessing, thinking about different situations and circumstances that's going to lead you to your correct, assumption or your action that you're going to perform. So there's definitely different things that go into critical thinking, but first I want to talk about some barriers that kind of limit your critical thinking. Some of the things that I've noticed is like emotions, and I'll get into that a little bit later too, but anger or one of those surface level emotions can kind of inhibit you because you're kind of in a state to where you're just reacting rather than thinking about the situation and what options you kind of have in front of you. Another thing that kind of acts as a barrier to you being able to critically think critically effectively is avoidance. So when you did something probably not wise to somebody else, and you kind of like avoid the situation because you don't want to confront that mishap that you may have performed. And that's another way of having a barrier to critical think. Another like part of that is like conformity, because let's say you're in a group and they want to do something, but you necessarily don't like it or you don't agree with it. You may conform just because you don't want to like get on anybody's bad side or step on anybody's toes, and so you just conform to that group mentality. That's another way of having a barrier for thinking critically, because you're not really thinking about what you want or acting on what you want. You're not realizing you're not thinking for yourself, essentially. Those are some barriers for critical thinking. So some qualities of a good critical thinker would be open-mindedness. So let's say you're propose something and you may not necessarily agree with it just because of your other preconceived notions and thoughts about that subject. But you should still be able to hear it out, because not everybody knows everything and everybody has different preferences. So why don't you hear out that other side, that other perspective, and make more of an assumption, or make more of like an educated response assumption about that said subject. That way you can kind of open your perspective to many other different things. You may not agree with it, but at least you heard them out. And I feel like that's something that, everybody kind of wants. Everybody kind of wants to be heard and at least understood on a base level. And even though that other person may not agree, like at least you still felt heard. Another quality may be of having like good critical thinking skills is essentially being able to communicate effectively. You may have like certain thoughts about a subject, but can you convey those thoughts and those opinions effectively to the other person so that somebody else may understand? You may have an open mind, but can you communicate your side so that they may have the same opportunity to understand you? And with that, you have to think critically about what words you're choosing and how you're saying it in the first place, so that it doesn't come off as, let's say, domineering in the conversation or dismissive of somebody else or, attacking somebody else. These are all qualities of, a good critical thinker. So next, I kind of want to speak about emotions along with the communication. So like I said earlier, anger can be a barrier. Once you see red, you kind of don't think of anything outside within that moment. You're just kind of reacting. But emotions, especially just being a human, sometimes those emotions kind of catalyze or, kind of bring forth the ability to critical think in the first place. An example I was shown while taking the class was, what was it? So essentially, during like the World War II era, like that period of time, all the horrendous things that the Nazis did, but somebody was being tried for, following the orders of Adolf, exterminating the Jews and things like that. But his defense was like he was just following orders. Like there was nothing else he could do, especially just given that environment. So I believe one scientist, I forget his name at the moment, but he asked a question, and it was kind of different from like everybody else's opinion on it, rather than thinking like, oh, he, either way, he's just, a terrible person because he went through with it and all of that. But the scientist question was, okay, how far are people willing to go and adhere to commands given somebody else's authority? So he ran this experiment where I guess he got these participants, and he told the participants to give this electric shock to somebody, I guess based off if they think they were lying or something like that. But he would just keep telling them, hey, raise the voltage. Now, some people, during that experiment, some of the participants was like, no, I'm not going to keep doing that. That seems inhumane. I don't care how bad they are or what they're lying about. I don't think that's just the right decision because these amps are getting pretty high. I don't care what you say, I'm going to stop. But some other people felt that pressure of like, hey, you must keep raising the voltage. You must keep raising the voltage. And even though they felt uncomfortable, they still continued to do so, which was rather interesting. So based off of that scientist's emotions to run that experiment in the first place, because he felt bad about it, but he wanted to understand why people tend to follow orders even over their own personal beliefs. So emotions can be a catalyst for doing some critical thinking to make some big headway in society or make some big self-improvements in general. So you have to kind of be mindful using critical thinking skills to be like, okay, I may feel this way, but what can I do in spite of those feelings, or along with those feelings, I should say, so that I could have a better outcome or better understanding on any given situation that I may come across. And then also, how do I communicate that forward so that other people around me can understand and give their thoughts and opinions about it as well. And let's see if we can all come to like at least some sort of understanding, if not a consensus, on what's going on and how we should move forward in the first place. As I was taking this class, it made me think a lot about my life and where I'm currently at. And honestly, I feel like I have pretty good critical thinking skills, but it could definitely be improved. And I would say there's been some life experiences that I've gone through that honestly have provided some barriers for me critically thinking, because it's just I feel pressured a lot sometimes, or I perceive that I'm being pressured into certain ideas, so I tend to conform or have like a narrow mind on certain subjects. But I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean I need to block other people out, or I just have such a defensive stance on any given subject. Just because people are different than me doesn't mean I can't communicate and, still have like some type of relationship with them. So yeah, I just wanted you to take the time and actually, figure out where you use critical thinking in your daily life. It could be as simple as going to the store or finding out what you should eat tonight, or maybe it could be something big, like maybe you're having like a situation with your significant other, or something at work where it's a little touchy, but take the time to think how you feel and what type of solutions you should explore, what type of options you have, rather than just reacting and potentially making like an unwise decision that not only hurts you but also hurts everybody else around you. And then also figure out, okay, well, yeah, it may affect everybody else, but I mean, what's the best outcome for me? Because one of the natural ideologies is like, you have to make sure your cup is full before you can pour into anybody else. So do you need to take self-care? Do you need to wonder what everybody else is thinking? Or do you just need to take care of yourself at the moment, so then you'd be able to provide for everybody else later on? That's all I kind of have to speak about today. I just kind of want to share, some of my school thoughts with you, and, hopefully give some thought-provoking, ideologies that you can ponder about and figure out how that fits in your life, and realize that it's never too late to learn, it's never too late to think, and go out and do your best. There's no right answer about anything, but at least take the time so you could make the best possible decision for you and potentially your peers around you. So with that being said, I just hope that you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to go ahead and get your free subscription, a 1-month subscription to Audible, as you probably heard in the intro slate. And I just hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful afternoon, and an amazing evening. And remember to just keep swimming. Yo. Yes, sir. All right, y'all have a good one. Bye.